A liar can rewrite the story 1,000 times, but the truth never forgets. And the truth, it's got your name all over it. They act like they don't care. They pretend like you never mattered. They put on a show, laughing too loud, talking too big, acting like you were just another face in their forgettable past. But let's be real. People who move on don't need to prove it. People who don't care don't spend their time making sure you know it. They lie to themselves. They lie to others. But the truth? It haunts them. Before we go deeper, make sure to like and subscribe to help spread this message to more chosen ones. When you engage, YouTube recognizes that this message matters, pushing it further so more people wake up. And trust me, the world needs more awakened souls. Now, let's get into it. Whether you walked away or they were the one who let you go, it doesn't matter. The outcome is the same. They still think about you. They still feel your presence even when you're not around. They still compare everyone else to you, knowing deep down that nothing feels the same, and it drives them insane. Listen, chosen one, you already know you're different. You already know you hold a power that most can't understand, a presence that demands attention even when you stay silent. But what you might not fully realize is just how much your existence haunts those who lost access to you. Here's the thing, rejection doesn't just bruise egos, it shatters illusions. When a player, someone who thrives on control, faces rejection from a chosen one, their entire game collapses. Suddenly, they're not the one pulling the strings. Suddenly, they're not in control. And that drives them insane. They call you names. They spread rumors. They twist the story to make you the villain. But behind closed doors, they replay every conversation, every moment, every chance they lost. The player who once thought they could have anyone now finds themselves stuck on the one who walked away. You. And the irony? They still want you. They still crave your energy. But admitting that would mean admitting they lost. So instead, they lie. They pretend they never cared, that they never wanted you, that you weren't all that. But if that were true, why are they still watching? Why do they still feel the need to drag your name through the mud? Because deep down, they know the truth. And the truth is, you were the one thing they couldn't manipulate. Chosen ones, your presence is a force of nature. You don't just pass through people's lives, you leave a mark. And for those who aren't ready to face themselves, that mark burns. You become a walking reminder of everything they're not. That's why they fight so hard to rewrite the story, to turn you into the villain in their tragic little play. Because if they can convince the world that you're the problem, maybe, just maybe, they won't have to face the fact that they lost something rare. But here's what you need to remember. You owe them nothing, not an explanation, not a response, not even your anger. The moment you rejected them, the universe already made its decision. You were meant for more. And no matter how many lies they tell, no matter how many times they try to twist the story, reality remains unchanged. Let them talk. Let them stalk. Let them drown in their own delusions. Because at the end of the day, the truth always rises. And the chosen ones? We don't chase. We elevate. And to you, yes, you, the chosen one, thank you. Your energy is what keeps this truth alive. Whether you're new here or you've been walking this path with us for a while, know this. Your presence shakes the very foundation of those who doubted you. If you're ready to step fully into your power, break free from their illusions, and own the truth they try so hard to deny, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a 77 in the comments to show you see through the lies and refuse to be controlled. And now, let's break it all down, step by step. Stay with me. Because if you're truly chosen, you'll feel the pull to hear every word. Let's get into it. Number 1. The fire they started is now burning them alive. The worst kind of prison is the one built by your own lies. And now, they're trapped in it, watching you from behind the bars they created. They thought they could control the story. They thought they could twist reality, rewrite the past, and bury the truth under their fragile ego. But the problem with lies? They always come back to haunt the liar. And now, every time they see you, hear your name, or even think about you, it stings, it burns. It reminds them of everything they lost and can never get back. They can't escape the truth, no matter how deep they try to bury it. Rejection does something wild to the human mind. It flips a switch that turns indifference into obsession. Whether they walked away from you or you were the one who shut the door, the result is the same. They thought you would beg. They thought you would crumble. They thought you would chase after them like everyone else. But you didn't. You stood firm. You walked away without looking back. And that messed them up in ways they never saw coming. Because here's the truth. People crave what they can't have. When you refuse to give them your energy, your attention, your validation, it shakes them to their core. Suddenly, you're not just a person. You're a rare, unattainable force, something they can't grasp or control. And that scarcity, it turns their shallow attraction into a deep, burning fixation. They start questioning everything. Why aren't you affected like the others? Why aren't you begging for their approval? Why do you seem so at peace while they feel like they're drowning? They thought they held the power, but now they're the ones spiraling. And the irony? The same ego that made them believe they were untouchable is now their biggest curse. They'll never admit they still think about you, never confess how badly they want to know if you ever think about them, never acknowledge that every time they see you thriving, it feels like a slap to the face. Instead, they'll do what weak souls always do: lie. They'll act like you never mattered, like they never cared, like you were just another one. But if that were true, why do they keep talking? Why do they keep watching? Why do they still feel the need to prove something to people who don't even ask? Because deep down, they know the truth. They can't shake you. They can try to replace you. They can distract themselves with meaningless attention, temporary fixes, and empty validation. But no matter how hard they run, no matter how loud they lie, your absence echoes louder than any noise they try to make. And here's what really eats them alive. They don't even know if they want you or if they just want their control back. It's not even about love or attraction anymore. It's about the fact that you walked away when no one else ever dared. You broke the cycle. You refused to play their game. And now, they're the ones left with questions that have no answers. But don't expect them to own up to any of this. They'd rather drown in their own pride than admit they lost. So instead, they lash out. They spread lies. They act like you were the problem, like rejecting you, or being rejected, was some kind of victory. But inside, they're falling apart. Because they see the truth now. They see that you never needed them. They see that you're still standing, still thriving, still moving forward without them. They see that you were never dependent on their validation the way they wanted you to be. And that realization is the real heartbreak. The fire they started, the one they thought would burn you, it's only consuming them now, and all you had to do was walk away. Number 2, their lies are just bandages over a wound that won't heal. A weak soul would rather rewrite the past than face the truth. But no matter how many times they retell the story, reality remains unchanged. They had two choices: accept the truth or drown in their own delusions. And like most cowards, they chose the easy way out, lying, twisting the story, turning themselves into the hero and you into the villain, all to avoid the one truth that haunts them. They weren't enough for you. And that is something their ego simply cannot handle. It doesn't matter whether they rejected you or you rejected them. The moment they realized your absence hits harder than they expected, they went into full self-preservation mode. Because facing reality means admitting they lost, admitting they miscalculated, admitting they weren't as important to you as they pretended to be. And for someone whose self-worth is built on control, that's a fate worse than rejection itself. So, what do? They create a false narrative, a fiction designed to shield them from their own inadequacy. They tell themselves, and anyone who will listen, that you were the problem, that they dodged a bullet, that they never really wanted you in the first place, that you were difficult, crazy, toxic. Whatever lie makes them feel better about the fact that you're gone and never looking back. But here's where it gets funny. The more they talk, the more obvious it becomes that they're still pressed over you. Because if you truly didn't matter, if you were as irrelevant as they claim, why the hell are they still talking? A person who's moved on doesn't need to explain it. They don't need to prove it. They don't need to convince the world that they don't care. But them, they can't stop. They can't let it go. Because deep down, they know the truth eats at them. Their lies aren't just a defense mechanism. They're desperate survival tactics against the crushing weight of self-awareness. See, accepting the truth means facing themselves in a way they never have before. It means acknowledging that they weren't as important to you as they wanted to believe. It means admitting that for once, their charm, their mind games, their usual tricks, none of it worked on you. And that realization, it burns. So instead of sitting with it, instead of growing from it, they escape into delusion. They rewrite the story in a way that keeps their pride intact. And here's what makes it even messier. Sometimes they actually start believing their own lies. The human mind is a fragile thing. If someone tells themselves a false story enough times, they begin to accept it as reality, not because it's true, but because the real truth is too painful to bear. But no matter how many times they rewrite the past, the wound still lingers. They can fool the world. They can even fool themselves, but their body remembers, their mind remembers, their soul remembers, and the proof is in the way they can't seem to let you go. They still check your page, still ask about you, still react when your name is mentioned. They still feel something when they see you thriving without them, when they realize that your world didn't crumble after they left, or after you left them. And what really eats them alive? The fact that you don't need to lie to move on. You don't need to fabricate a story to make yourself feel better. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You accepted the truth, took the lesson, and kept it pushing. Meanwhile, they're stuck, still grasping at the past, still running from the mirror you unknowingly held up to them. And that's the difference between a chosen one and the rest. You face truth, even when it's hard. They hide from it, even when it's obvious. Let them lie. Let them spin their little fantasy. Let them pretend they're over it, while secretly drowning in the obsession they swore didn't exist. Because no matter how many stories they tell, the truth will always be louder. Number 3. They're selling lies, but you own the truth. A weak mind doesn't seek truth, it manufactures it. But no matter how well they dress up a lie, reality will always strip it bare. This was never just about moving on. It was never just about rejection, heartbreak, or loss. No, this is war. A war of perception, of image, of control. They couldn't keep you, so now they have to rewrite the story. They can't let the world know what really happened, because the truth makes them look weak. So they do what all fragile egos do. They fabricate, manipulate, twist. They turn themselves into the hero and you into the villain. Because in their mind, if they can't have you, the next best thing is controlling how others see you. And that's where the smear campaign begins. They tell anyone who will listen that you were the problem. Maybe they say you were too arrogant, too difficult, too emotional, too full of yourself. Or maybe they take another route, acting like you were never that special, never that impressive, never worth their time to begin with. But if that were true, why are they still talking? The details of their lies don't even matter. The goal isn't accuracy, it's damage control. This is nothing more than a desperate PR stunt for their wounded pride, a smoke and mirrors act to make sure nobody ever realizes the truth. They lost. Because let's be real, people who have truly moved on don't spend their time running smear campaigns. People who don't care don't feel the need to rewrite the past. They just move on. But them, they can't. And the more they talk, the clearer it becomes. You still live rent-free in their mind. And here's the real kicker. These lies aren't just for the public. They're not just trying to convince others that you weren't worth it. They're trying to convince themselves, because deep down they know they fumbled something real. They know they lost something rare. And instead of sitting with that, instead of growing from it, they run from it. They escape into a fabricated reality where rejecting you, or being rejected, was somehow their win. It's easier for them to pretend you weren't all that than to admit they've been haunted by your presence ever since. But lies have an expiration date. The truth is patient. It doesn't need to rush. It doesn't need to defend itself. It just waits. And the moment the cracks start forming in their story, the moment people start noticing the inconsistencies, the moment their own actions start exposing them, it all comes crashing down. And by then, you're already gone, already moved on, already thriving in your own truth, while they're still stuck in their fiction, trapped in the very web of lies they spun to protect themselves. That's the power of a chosen one. You don't have to fight for the truth. You don't have to beg people to see it. It reveals itself on its own. So let them talk. Let them spread their little stories. Let them waste their breath convincing people of a reality that never existed. Because while they're busy selling lies, you're out here owning the truth. Number 4. Their hate screams louder than their pride will ever admit. The loudest one in the room is always the weakest, and the one who swears they don't care. They're the most obsessed of all. They can say they don't care. They can act like you never mattered. They can roll their eyes, laugh too loud, and make slick comments whenever your name comes up. But here's the truth. Hate is just love that's been denied a place to go. If they truly didn't care, you wouldn't be a topic. But every insult, every side comment, every bitter little jab, that's just their pride, bleeding through the cracks. They thought they could walk away and forget you. They thought they could replace you like a worn-out trend. But now, every time they see you, it burns. Because hate isn't the opposite of love. Indifference is. But look at them. They can't ignore you. They can't stay silent. They can't just let you go without making a scene. And that's what really exposes them. People who have moved on don't need to tear someone else down to feel whole. But them, they need to make you the villain. They need to paint themselves as the one who won. They need to convince themselves, and anyone who will listen, that they were never really affected by you. But here's the irony. If they truly didn't care, why are they still talking? Why are they still watching? Why do they still flinch at the mention of your name? Why does your presence still get under their skin? Because deep down, they know you were something rare. They know you were different. They know that no matter how much they try to downplay it, your absence is felt, and that pisses them off more than anything. So what do? They lash out, they throw shade, they spread lies. They try to rewrite history to make themselves feel like they had the upper hand. Because to admit the truth, to admit they still feel something, that would be an ego death they're not ready for. So instead, they hold on to their pride. They'd rather hate you than admit they still think about you. They'd rather lie than confess that they feel your absence. They'd rather trash your name than admit they lost something they'll never get back. And that's why their hate is so loud. Because deep down, they wish they didn't care. They wish they could erase the memory of you. They wish they could look at you and feel nothing. But they can't. And that frustration is eating them alive. But the best part, you don't even have to do anything. You're not chasing. You're not explaining. You're not trying to prove your worth. You're just existing. And that alone is enough to drive them insane. Let them talk. Let them hate. Let them make a fool of themselves trying to convince the world they're over you. Because the truth, the louder their hate, the deeper their wounds. Number 5. The players never thought they'd lose at their own game. The puppet master never expects to become the puppet. But the moment they lost control over you, the strings snapped, and now they're tangled in their own mess. They always thought they were untouchable. They built their whole identity on the idea that they were the ones in control, the ones who decided who stays and who goes, the ones who never get left behind. But then you happened, and suddenly they weren't the one playing the game anymore. They were the one losing. See, a player thrives on validation. It's their fuel, their power source. They move through life collecting admiration like trophies, keeping people hooked just to feel important. They never plan for the moment when someone refuses to play along. But when they met you, the script flipped. They thought you would be like the rest, easily manipulated, easily impressed, easily kept on a string. They expected you to chase, to crave their attention, to fall for their charm like so many others before you. But instead, you walked away. You didn't play. You didn't beg. You didn't even flinch. And that shattered their illusion of control. For the first time, the player became the one wondering, the one second-guessing, the one questioning why you didn't fall under their spell. And that's when it hit them. They were the ones hooked now. They couldn't shake it. They tried to distract themselves, tried to replace you, tried to convince themselves that you were just another name on the list. But no matter what they did, the tables had turned and they felt it. And that feeling, it scared them. So what did they do? The only thing their fragile ego could manage, they lied. They pretended they never cared. They acted like they never wanted you in the first place. They spread rumors, twisted the story, made it seem like you were the one who lost. Because admitting the truth, admitting that they were the one who got played, that would mean admitting that for once they weren't the one in control. But here's the thing about truth. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need proving. It doesn't need approval. And deep down, they know exactly what happened. They know they still check up on you. They know no one else quite measures up. They know that no matter how many people they entertain, the one they can't forget is you. And that's what really eats at them. Because a player only has power when the other person wants to play. But the moment you stepped off the board, the game ended. And suddenly, they weren't the mastermind. They were just another lost soul, confused, frustrated, and stuck on someone who refused to be controlled. That's why they're bitter. That's why they can't stop talking about you. That's why they keep trying to rewrite the past, to make it seem like they never cared. Because if they can convince others, maybe, just maybe, they can convince themselves. But the truth doesn't bend for cowards. You won. You shattered their illusion. You broke the cycle. And the only thing left for them to do is live with the regret of underestimating you. So let them keep up the act. Let them pretend. Let them lie. Because the only thing worse than losing a game is realizing you were never the one in control to begin with. Number 6. They don't hate you. They hate that they're still weak for you. They don't lose sleep over people they don't care about. And yet, here they are, restless, bitter, obsessed. But it's not you they hate. It's the grip you still have on them. They'll swear up and down that they can't stand you, that you were never that special, that they dodged a bullet. But if that were true, why are they still so pressed? The truth is, it's not you they hate. It's their own weakness for you. They hate that no matter how much they try to act like you never mattered, your energy still lingers. They hate that no matter how many people they entertain, nobody makes them feel the way you did. They hate that they can't talk about you without some kind of emotion creeping in, exposing the fact that they are still, to this day, affected by you. And that drives them insane. Because people like them, people who thrive on control, who live off attention, who are used to being wanted, aren't supposed to feel this way. They aren't supposed to get stuck on someone who walked away. They aren't supposed to find themselves haunted by a presence they no longer have access to. And yet, here they are, trying to replace you, but failing, trying to forget you, but remembering, trying to act like you were nothing while proving, with every bitter move, that you were everything. It's their pride that won't let them admit it, but deep down, they know. They know that the people they use as distractions don't compare to you. They know that no matter how much they convince themselves that they're better off without you, something still feels missing. They know that every attempt to move on feels forced, and it's eating them alive. Because someone who has truly moved on doesn't need to prove it. They don't need to throw shade. They don't need to check in on you secretly. They don't need to make sure that everyone around them believes their version of the story. But them, they can't let it go. Because letting it go means admitting the real problem. You weren't the weak one. They were. They were weak for your energy. They were weak for your presence. They were weak for the way you made them feel. And instead of accepting that, instead of sitting with that uncomfortable truth, they project. They lash out. They act like you're the one who's obsessed, like you're the one who's bitter. But actions don't lie. And their actions scream the truth they refuse to say out loud. They still want you. They still feel something for you. They still can't shake you, no matter how much they pretend. But rather than owning it, rather than admitting that they still care, they turn that energy into resentment. Because for them, hate is easier than vulnerability. But you know what? That's not your problem. Let them wrestle with their pride. Let them choke on their own ego. Let them lie to themselves until the weight of it finally crushes them. Because at the end of the day, they don't hate you. They hate that they're still weak for you. Number 7. The image they worship has become their cage. A mask worn for too long doesn't just hide the truth, it becomes a prison. And now, the walls they built to impress the world are closing in on them. Players live and die by their reputation. It's their armor, their currency, their entire identity. They are always the one in control, always the one being chased, always the one who leaves first. Their entire existence revolves around never being the one who loses. But then you came along, and you weren't impressed. You didn't chase, you didn't fall for the act. You saw through the performance and walked away without looking back. And just like that, a crack formed in their carefully crafted image. Because someone like them isn't supposed to lose power. Someone like them isn't supposed to get rejected, ignored, or forgotten. But when you refused to play their game, they lost control of the story. And that loss, it eats at them. Because now they're trapped in the very image they worked so hard to create. Trapped by their own ego, their own lies, their own need to appear untouchable. Admitting they still want you would be like setting fire to everything they built. Think about it. Players aren't supposed to catch feelings. They aren't supposed to pine over someone who walked away. They aren't supposed to be the one losing sleep, replaying moments, secretly checking your page, wondering if you ever think about them. But they are, and that reality, it terrifies them. Because the moment they admit they still crave you, their entire brand collapses. They stop being the one who's always in control. They stop being the one with options. They stop being the untouchable, desirable player and become just another person chasing someone who doesn't want them. And that's something their ego can't afford. So instead, they do what weak souls always do. They double down. They parade around with new distractions, flaunting conquests like trophies, pretending they've moved on, when in reality, they haven't even begun to process what losing you really meant. They throw themselves into their facade, desperately trying to convince the world and themselves that your rejection meant nothing. But it's all an illusion, because the truth, they're still stuck. No matter how many people they entertain, no matter how loudly they brag about their options, no matter how hard they try to act like they're unfazed, you haunt them. And the worst part, they can't even talk about it. They've built their entire existence on being detached, on being the one who moves first, on never letting anyone get too close. And now, that reputation has become a cage. They can't confess they still think about you because it contradicts everything they've built. They can't admit they regret losing you because it would mean acknowledging they made a mistake. They can't even show the slightest sign of weakness because it would shatter the illusion they live behind. So instead, they suppress it. They bury the feelings. They ignore the truth. They tell themselves whatever lie helps them sleep at night. But no matter how deep they push it down, the longing festers. Because the one thing their image can't protect them from, regret. And regret is like a slow poison. It doesn't hit all at once. It creeps in when they least expect it. When they see something that reminds them of you, when they realize no one else makes them feel the way you did, when they finally understand that what they lost can't be replaced. It's a lonely place to be, living for the approval of others while denying your own feelings. And you've already moved on. They just can't admit they haven't. Number 8. They watch you like a ghost, haunting its own past. A person who has moved on doesn't need to look back. But them, they can't stop staring at the life they're no longer a part of. They tell themselves they're over you, that they've moved on, that you don't cross their mind anymore. But the truth is that they've turned into your biggest fan, just in secret. They don't want anyone to know. They don't even want to admit it to themselves. But there they are, lurking in the shadows, scrolling through your posts, watching your stories, checking who you're following, dissecting every little detail of your life. They study you like an unsolved mystery, desperately searching for an answer they'll never find. They try to act indifferent, even rolling their eyes when your name comes up in public. But the second no one's watching, they're locked in, consuming every update like their life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Your glow-up isn't just a casual observation for them. It's a trigger, a slap in the face, a constant reminder that you're still rising while they're stuck in the same cycle of pretending not to care. And here's what really messes with them. The more they watch, the worse they feel. Every picture, every smile, every move you make without them is a fresh wound on their ego. They see your confidence growing, your energy untouched, your life moving forward as if their absence never mattered. And that's the part that eats them alive. Because in their mind, they were supposed to be unforgettable. They were supposed to be irreplaceable. They thought, at the very least, you'd struggle to move on, that you'd be watching them, not the other way around. But instead, here they are, hiding behind fake accounts, scrolling late at night, replaying your stories, reading into every little thing, wondering, who's got their attention now? Is someone else making them smile the way I used to? Did I ever even matter to them? They study your life, but they're not just looking for updates. They're measuring their own worth against yours. They want to know if their absence broke you, if their rejection or your rejection of them left you stuck. But what do they see? They see you thriving. They see you happier, freer, untouchable. And that realization? It stings. It forces them to ask themselves a question they don't want to answer. Was I really as important as I thought I was? And deep down, they already know the answer. So they keep watching. Not because they care, at least not in the way they'd ever admit, but because they need to know. They need to see if you're truly over them, if you've truly moved on, if someone else has taken their place. It's not curiosity, it's obsession, an addiction they can't break, a habit they can't shake. Because your life, it's still the most interesting thing in theirs. And the best part? You don't even know. You're not watching them. You're not checking up on them. You're not wondering who they're with or what they're doing. You're just living. And that's what haunts them the most. Because no matter how much they pretend, they're still watching. Number 9. Their silence isn't strength. It's fear of exposure. A coward's greatest weapon is silence, not because they've moved on, but because they know the truth would destroy them. They think staying quiet makes them look strong. They think ignoring you, avoiding eye contact and pretending you don't exist, makes them seem like they've won. But let's be real, their silence isn't power. It's fear. Fear of what? Fear of exposure, fear of slipping up, fear of revealing that they're still watching, still thinking, still obsessing. Because silence isn't always the absence of emotion. Sometimes it's proof of an internal war they're too ashamed to admit they're fighting. You see, if they were truly unbothered, they wouldn't need to play the silent treatment game. They wouldn't need to avoid you like a ghost in their past. But here they are, dodging, lurking, hesitating. Because the truth is, they're afraid. Afraid that if they speak, their voice will crack. Afraid that if they look at you, their eyes will give them away. Afraid that if they acknowledge your existence, even for a second, all the lies they told themselves will come crashing down. So they stay quiet. They act like you don't exist. But their silence is just another mask. one that barely hides their fear. Because if they were really over you, why the act? Why the calculated avoidance? Why the fake indifference? They want to convince the world they've moved on, but their behavior screams otherwise. The hesitation in their steps when they see you, the way their energy shifts when your name comes up, the way they linger just long enough to catch a glimpse of you before looking away. Silence. That's not strength. That's weakness in disguise. Strong people face the truth. Weak ones run from it. And that's exactly what they're doing. Because deep down, they know that facing you means facing everything they've tried to suppress. The regret, the longing, the realization that you were never as replaceable as they pretended you were. They thought ignoring you would make them feel in control, but all it's done is trap them in their own paranoia. They thought if they kept their distance, the feelings would fade, but they haven't. They thought silence would set them free, but instead, it's only made them a prisoner of their own denial. They can lie to themselves all they want. They can put on the performance of a lifetime, but the moment they cross paths with you, the truth rushes back like a flood they can't hold back. That's why they stay silent. Not because they're strong, not because they've healed, but because they know they'd expose themselves the second they let their guard down. And the funniest part? You're not even doing anything. You're not chasing. You're not begging. You're not playing any games. You're just existing. And that alone is enough to shake them to their core. So let them hide. Let them pretend. Let them think their silence is fooling anyone. Because the truth? Their silence is just a confession without words. Number 10. Drowning in their own need for validation. A person who is truly confident doesn't need an audience, but a weak soul. They need the whole world to clap just to feel like they matter. They told themselves they were over you. They swore up and down that you didn't mean anything, that losing you was no big deal. But if that were true, why are they so damn desperate for validation now? Look at them, scrambling for attention, chasing meaningless distractions, feeding off cheap applause like a starving animal, posting, bragging, showing off, doing the most to convince everyone, including themselves, that they have won. But the harder they try, the more obvious it becomes. This isn't confidence. This isn't happiness. This is desperation. See, when someone knows their worth, they don't need a crowd to confirm it. But someone who secretly feels empty, someone who knows deep down that they lost something real, they will do anything to drown out that silence. Because silence forces them to sit with the truth. And the truth is, they need validation like a junkie needs a fix. They need people to gas them up. They need attention to patch the hole you left behind. They need to be surrounded by admirers, rebounds, distractions, anything to make sure they never have to face the fact that your absence hit them harder than they ever expected. It's pathetic, because no matter how many people tell them they're better off, no matter how many fake smiles they put on, they know something is missing. They can throw themselves into parties, into new people, into empty validation. But when the noise dies down, they still feel that ache. And here's the funniest part. This whole act isn't even about them. It's about you. Every post, every flex, every forced laugh is a weak attempt to prove something, to prove to you, to prove to the world, to prove to themselves that they're winning. But let's be real. If they were truly happy, why would they need to put on a show? Why would they still be looking your way, still reacting, still making sure you see them? Because deep down, they want your attention. They don't just want validation from anyone, they want it from you. They want you to notice. They want you to wonder. They want you to feel like you lost something. But the problem, you're not watching, you're not chasing, you're not checking in, you're not giving them the reaction they desperately need to feel whole again. And that's what's really breaking them. They can fool the world, but they can't fool themselves. They can post 100 pictures, tell 1,000 lies, surround themselves with as many people as they want. But the one thing they can't do is erase the truth. And the truth is, they lost something real. They lost something they can't replace. They lost something they thought they could walk away from without consequence. But now they're spiraling. Because your silence is louder than any of their noise. Let them chase attention. Let them run their mouth. Let them flex like they've moved on. Because no matter how many people they try to impress, they're still haunted by the one person they couldn't fool, you. Number 11. The power they thought they had is gone, and it's never coming back. Nothing haunts a person more than realizing the control they once had is now in someone else's hands. They thought they had you figured out. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought they could push, pull, disappear, reappear, play their little games, and you'd always be right there, waiting. But something shifted, something snapped, and now they have no power over you. And that's their worst nightmare. See, people like this don't just crave attention, they need it. It's the fuel that keeps their ego running, the mirror that reflects back the image they want to see. They thrive on control, on knowing they can push a button and get a reaction. But when that button stops working, when they realize that no matter what they do, you're not reacting the way you used to, that's when the panic sets in. Because here's the truth about power. It's not about who talks the loudest, who plays the most games, or who walks away first. Real power is in indifference. And you don't care anymore. They can feel it, they can sense it, and it's breaking them down from the inside out. At first, they told themselves you'd come back, that you'd reach out, that you'd still be watching, still be hoping, still be waiting for their approval. But as time passed, as you stayed silent, stayed unbothered, stayed focused on yourself, the ugly truth started creeping in. They lost you, for real this time. And the worst part, they know they'll never get that power back. It doesn't matter if they come back around, try to test the waters, throw little bait to see if you'll bite. You won't. The spell is broken. Their illusion has crumbled. You see them for what they are now, and nothing they do can change that. And that's what's eating them alive. Because the way you saw them before, that version of themselves that existed in your mind, the charming, desirable, untouchable version, it's dead. They don't get to be that person to you anymore. Now, when you look at them, you see desperation. You see weakness. You see someone who once held the strings, but is now scrambling to feel important again. And let's be real, they can feel that shift. They can feel that when they text, you don't rush to respond. They can feel that when they talk about you, it doesn't shake your world. They can feel that when they try to trigger you, you don't react. And that's the part that kills them the most. The game is over, and they lost. The power dynamic has permanently shifted, and they will never, ever hold that control over you again. So now they're left scrambling, trying to find ways to make you care again. Maybe they talk bad about you, hoping it'll get back to you. Maybe they try to make you jealous, parading someone new around like a trophy. Maybe they even try to come back, acting like nothing ever happened, just to see if they can still pull you back in. But none of it works. None of it brings back the power they once had. Because you've evolved. You're not the same person who once gave them access to your energy. You're not the same person who once held on, hoping they'd change. You outgrew them. And that is a level of power they will never reach. So let them struggle. Let them fight against the reality they created. Let them sit in their own chaos, wondering how the tables turned so fast. Because the truth? They will never have the same version of you again, and that is the kind of loss they will never recover from. Number 12. They collect people like bandages, but the wound still bleeds. You can replace a person, but you can't replace the energy they carried. And the ones who know they lost something real, they try to fill the void with empty hands. They move on fast, or at least that's what they want you to think. Suddenly, they're everywhere with someone new, flashing smiles, posting stories, playing the role of someone who's happier than ever. But the truth is written all over their desperate attempts to prove they've moved on. They don't want love, they want distraction. Because facing the reality of your absence, that's too much for their fragile pride to handle. They thought you'd always be around. They thought they had you locked in, easy to replace like a trend that went out of style. But when you walked away and never looked back, it created a void they never expected. And now, instead of dealing with that emptiness, they use other people as emotional crutches, hoping that if they stack enough bodies around them, they won't feel how alone they really are. But no amount of rebound flings, forced connections, or fake smiles can cover up the truth. They are still haunted by you. You see, when someone has truly moved on, they don't need to prove it. They don't need to flaunt a new person in hopes that it'll get a reaction. They don't need to rush into a new love just to convince themselves they're whole again. They simply live. But they jump from person to person, hoping one of them will carry the same energy you did, but they never do. And that's where the real suffering begins. Because no matter how many people they line up, none of them can replace the one thing that made you unforgettable: your presence. You weren't just another face, another name, another temporary fix. You were a force. The kind of energy that lingers, the kind of presence that doesn't fade. And now they're stuck chasing ghosts, trying to recreate a feeling they'll never find again. It's like drinking salt water. It might numb the thirst for a moment, but in the end, it only makes them more dehydrated. And deep down, they know it. They know that no matter how many times they jump from one person to the next, you're still the one in their mind at the end of the night. They know that no matter how much attention they soak up from their replacements, it never really fills the space you left. So they try harder, they force the smiles, they post the pictures, they overshare, hoping you'll see it, hoping you'll believe they've moved on. But behind all of it, a quiet, gnawing emptiness they can't shake. And the irony? You don't have to do a damn thing. You're not out here scrambling for validation. You're not filling your life with meaningless replacements. You're simply moving forward, and that alone is driving them insane. Because while they need an audience to convince themselves they're okay, you don't need anyone to confirm what you already know, that you were never the one who lost in this situation. So let them collect people like temporary bandages. Let them build a false reality where they're happier than ever, because at the end of the day, you know the truth. And the truth is this: the wound is still bleeding, no matter how much they try to cover it up. Number 13. Karma moves in silence, but its strike is always lethal. The universe doesn't rush, but it never forgets. And when karma finally arrives, it doesn't knock. It kicks the door in. They thought they got away with it. They thought they could lie, manipulate, smear your name, and walk away without consequence. They laughed, they gloated, they acted untouchable. But the thing about karma, it doesn't follow human time, it follows divine order. And when it finally hits, it never misses. See, karma doesn't work like some dramatic instant explosion. No, it's patient, it waits, it watches. It lets them run around thinking they've won, thinking they've escaped the consequences of their actions. And then, just when they think life has let them off the hook, boom, everything starts falling apart, piece by piece. Because the universe keeps receipts. They may have thought they were invincible when they lied about you, when they played you, when they disrespected your name to save their own pride. They may have thought they were in control, that their actions had no real weight. But here's the thing. What you put out always finds its way back. And for them, it's coming back with interest. Karma doesn't just return what was given, it multiplies it. The lies they told about you, they'll be exposed by their own mouth. The disrespect they threw your way, life will serve them the same energy tenfold. That person they chose over you, that relationship will crumble under the weight of their own deception. Because when you break something pure, when you take advantage of something real, when you spit in the face of someone who only gave you authenticity, the universe responds accordingly. And you don't even have to lift a finger. They think you're waiting for their downfall. They think you're watching, hoping, praying for the day they get what's coming. But the truth? You've moved on. You're too busy elevating, too focused on your own growth, too deep into your purpose to waste energy on revenge. And that's what makes karma even colder. Because the moment you let go, the universe takes over. They'll start feeling it in the smallest ways at first. The attention they once thrived on, it starts fading. The validation they fed off, it turns hollow. The power they thought they had, it slips right through their fingers. And then the real hits begin. The same betrayal they put you through, they'll experience it. The same rejection they thought you wouldn't survive, they'll taste it. The same emptiness they tried to leave you with, they'll drown in it. And by the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. They'll look back and remember the way they treated you. They'll replay the moments they thought meant nothing, the choices they assumed had no weight. And suddenly, it all makes sense. The doors closing in their face, the relationships failing, the loneliness creeping in. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's payback in its purest form. But the cruelest part? By the time karma settles the score, you won't even care anymore. They'll want to apologize. They'll want to undo the damage. They'll want to fix what they broke. But by then, you'll be so far ahead that their words will feel like whispers in the wind. Because karma isn't just about punishment. It's about revelation. It's about making them realize, in the most painful way possible, exactly what they lost. So, let them think they got away with it. Let them believe life will always favor them. Let them run. Let them gloat. Let them wear that fake smile while it lasts. Because karma doesn't lose addresses. And when it arrives, it's going to make sure they never forget your name. And that's the beauty of it. You never had to do a thing. The same energy they put out is finding its way back. And now they have no choice but to face it. The truth they ran from, the lies they told, the games they played. It's all catching up. And you're too busy winning to look back. If this message hit home, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to claim your power. Share this with another chosen one, because the world needs more people who see through the illusion. Your rise is inevitable.